This is Regenerative Skills, the podcast helping you to learn the skills and solutions to create an abundant and connected future. I'm your host, Oliver Gaucher. New Society Publishers is your gateway to a regenerative future. They're not just about books, they're about transforming lives and communities through the power of knowledge and action. Their mission is simple: to inspire and empower individuals to create a more just, sustainable, and compassionate world. They envision a future where every person has the tools and resources they need to thrive in harmony with nature, where communities are resilient and interconnected, and where equity and justice are fundamental principles guiding our collective journey. If you subscribe right now to their newsletter at newsociety.com, you'll be the first to receive sneak peeks at new content and get discounts on upcoming title releases. You'll even get an exclusive discount code on your first purchase of books, ebooks, or audiobooks. So sign up today at newsociety.com. Well, welcome back, Alex Stinson. I'm really excited to have you again here because this is, I think, of all of the really great interviews that you've done so far, the one that I have been looking forward to the most, because I actually had the chance to interview Luwayo many years back. I think he even came out in the first or the second season of this podcast when I was still in Guatemala. Give me an update. How's this guy doing?
Yeah, a lot has changed since 2018, as you can imagine. You know, it's 7 years later, and I was just impressed by the kind of scale of ambition that the Permaculture Paradise Institute has kind of gone through, and Luwayo was able to describe really well how he, his family, and his other people working at the Institute really have had to iterate on the initial kind of farmer capacity building model that he talked to you about in that 2018 episode into a train the trainer model, thinking about how you distribute skills, but also things like livestock and seed out into communities of farmers and make them responsible for their own kind of community development, which is it's really exciting because, you know, in the first episode, he was really talking about how they were doing things on the farm. And a lot of what we talked about in this one is how they've expanded quite far beyond that initial project.
That makes so much sense. I mean, he and his popularity and the awareness that he had in his community of his project was really just blowing up and taking off when I spoke to him last time. It doesn't surprise me at all that he's really expanded beyond that. And I feel like I remember from the first one too that he was getting institutional support from the government as well. Is that still a component of their work?
Yeah, it sounded like they were getting a mix of different kinds of funding, and you can learn about it on their website. And you can also sponsor a farmer or a farmer training if you want. That's kind of part of how they've built their model is they've gotten a cost size for, okay, if I train a farmer who then goes and is responsible for training 10 or 100 other farmers in my the trainer model, what does it cost? How expensive is it actually? What does it look like to do things like give a group of farmers some rabbits, they breed more rabbits, they distribute them in their little network, the pod that he's kind of developed of that community, and then they give back rabbits to the Permaculture Paradise Institute to then scale it out. So he's finding a lot of creative ways to both take this international money that's like, you know, for development, or national money that's for development, but also really thinking creatively about, like, you know, if you can't spend money on everyone, how do you spend money on a few people and then redistribute the skills and the knowledge and the tactics through that network and make them responsible for that project?
Wow. I mean, not only does this sound like a really inspiring example, which I can remember from speaking to him originally, but also really a capstone on the project that you've been interviewing for, which is how to get scarce resources to stretch as far as possible. It sounds like this multiplier effect and his constant tinkering with how to stretch everything to its maximum potential and impact is, I mean, I haven't heard about somebody doing this almost anywhere else.
Yeah, and you know, coming from, you know, the international nonprofit space where you do a lot of learning and capacity development, I could see in his approach the kind of innovation that I always love to support, right? Someone who had a clear sense of like, I'm not going to train everyone. I need other people to be responsible for it. Like scaling only works when the community owns the thing, when people feel responsible for transferring the knowledge, for, in the case of, rabbits, handing a rabbit to one of their neighbors and making it actually an important part of, the system, or seeds or skills. So for me, that was like really exciting to see, and it's often something that doesn't happen if you have a very top-down like NGO style approach. Instead, if you kind of have an organization that's working in a community with social entrepreneurship at its center, that seems to be kind of what's driving the project. So it was very neat to learn from him, and you could hear he was also a little bit like when I asked him questions to reflect, you could hear he was a little surprised about how much they've scaled and changed their approach over the years. So it's been really neat.
Man, that guy's such a stud. I am so looking forward to listening to this interview. Is there anything else that we should know before jumping in? Any tidbits to look out for?
Well, no, I think it's a great idea to go back and listen to episode 71, which was at the time it was called Abundant Edge. And then I think, Oliver, you had a special episode, follow-up episode as well with him soon after in the series. So it's neat to hear that kind of how things are similar and different over time. And 7 years is a long time to learn and grow.
Especially at the velocity at which that guy makes progress. Well, thank you so much for picking up the gauntlet on this and not only managing this interview, but this entire series that you've been doing. It has been so enriching to not only get your perspective and your questions on this, but also see who you've brought in. These are people that I wasn't aware of, and I know that it's added so much to the conversation in this podcast. So thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you for the opportunity, Oliver. Well, I'm really excited for this interview today. I'm getting a chance to talk with Luwayo Biswick, who was on the Abundant Edge podcast with Oliver in 2018, and I had to go look that up. And so I'm really excited to have him back on and give us some updates on his projects in Malawi, including the Paradise Permaculture Institute, which I was reading about before the interview, but I won't get in the way. Yeah, for the listeners who didn't hear your previous interview, wow, 7 years ago, tell us a little bit about yourself, Luwayo, and what you're doing and your projects.
Thanks, Alex. Hi, everyone. My name is Biswick. I'm the founder of Permaculture Paradise Institute. I'm also founder of Permaculture Youth Organization, which focuses on recycling. I also co-authored the team Permaculture step-by-step manual. I'm a facilitator, designer, and consultant. I focus on teaching and practicing permaculture in Malawi, and I share the knowledge that I initiated myself globally. So my work focuses on permaculture. That's all.
Yeah, and quite a lot of it too, right? When last you talked to Oliver, you had just kind of been partway through a journey of bringing permaculture and agroecology to rural communities around you. Can you tell us a little bit, like how did the Institute start, and what's been the journey since 2018? What's changed?
So, for those who don't know what Permaculture Paradise Institute is, we are a social enterprise. We're a demonstration and training institute, and we demonstrate how local resources can be used to alleviate the challenges that most of the Malawians, especially the marginalized communities in the rural areas, face, being it hunger, malnutrition, poverty, resource depletion, climate change, inflation, and the like. So we demonstrate possibilities of Malawi, what's possible in Malawi. Everything that we demonstrate is practical. The solutions are practical. And we share the solutions globally to the world, all those people So Permaculture Paradise Institute was initiated in 2018. Of course, we bought the land where we built the institute in 2017, but up until 2018, that's where we initiated the institute as the institute. So the institute started with the family business, was initiated by my wife and I. So coming from a poor background, we've known hunger firsthand, and if we go back in time, we realized that we went to bed on an empty stomach so many days than the days that we have something on the table to eat. My wife grew up in an orphanage. I grew up in a very big family of 12, and it was very challenging for my parents to access food, grow food, and provide for the needs for this larger family. So coming from that poor background where I personally felt at that time when I stayed with my parents, I felt to continue with my special education because my parents could no longer afford to pay for my school fees. So having gone through all these things, all these challenges, we grew up as a family full of questions that what must have we done to deserve such a difficult life? But we didn't want to focus on the challenges and problems or negative, but we wanted to focus on the positives. We wanted to redirect our energy towards something positive. That's when I started the New Life Permaculture Youth Group, which was focusing on recycling and fundraising for the youth to continue with their education. So I was fundraising and securing funding and pay for fees for those who wanted to go further with their education. And later on, we realized that Malawi is a country in the subtropic region, but full of resources, with 12 solid mines to grow food. But unfortunately, half of the population are poor people, and quarter of the people in Malawi live in severe poverty, that they survive on less than $1 a day. And 85% of the farmers are subsistence farmers, but over 60% of the kids under the age of 5 are nutritionally stunted, because the type of farming that's being focused in Malawi is conventional farming, which promotes massive production of corn. And that rural farming is one way that's bringing all the challenges. So having gone through all the challenges, having learned about all these challenges about Malawi, my wife and I decided to relocate from the city into the outskirts to be able to connect with the marginalized communities and be able to listen to the people in the rural areas and be able to uncover the secrets that can help to alleviate the challenges that these people were facing. But in order to do that, we needed to initiate something practical and we needed to try it ourselves. That's when Permaculture Paradise Institute was born. So we started with the demonstration and then the lessons learned. We decided to share to a humble group of 20 smallholder farmers. And we started with 1 kilogram of rice, which was shared to 20 farmers. And the 20 farmers multiplied and they shared to 150 farmers. And the 150 farmers multiplied and they shared to 12,100 farmers. So we started with, let's say, 20 farmers. And in 3 years, we managed to reach out to 12,200 farmers, and we managed to plant 6 million trees. And we helped establish over 12,000 food forests for smallholder farmers. So that's how Permaculture Paradise was born. And then having achieved all of that, being able to grow our own food for the family, and then being able to support the local marginalized communities, we attracted a lot of people's attention, including the government, organizations who wanted to be trained in permaculture. So in a nutshell, that's where we're coming from, and that's how Permaculture Paradise was initiated. So to date, I'm very happy to report that the institute, which started in a very humble beginning. Now it's a big, great movement in Malawi, not just in Malawi, but we have a lot of people that come from all over the world to learn permaculture and agriculture in Malawi.
Yeah, and it's really seems to have grown over the last 7 years. I mean, what's changed for you? You know, you started with like you were still learning when last you talked to Oliver, I suppose, but what have you learned in the subsequent years, and what did you not expect, or what didn't go the way you thought it would go?
So many changes. So the first demonstration that we started, we bought 16 acres piece of land. And that 16-acre piece of land helped us to buy 7 acres where we've established farmers market. And that's where we sell all of our products. So we've got a farm shop, and it's a farmers market which is open to the farmers. And that 7 acres is also connected to a cafe and restaurant where we sell organic meals. For people who want to taste organic meals, we've got a cafe and restaurant, and we've got a specific urban permaculture demonstration in town, which was born from this very first Permaculture Institute. And we have a specific wetland permaculture demonstration where people are able to learn permaculture in wetlands where people have got so much water. Something that has changed is, the number of farmers. For us, we never expected that we could reach 12,000 farmers in 2 years. But we wanted to, our goal, our short-term goal was to train at least 10,000 farmers. And we surpassed that. That's something that we never expected. And then we've also managed to buy another 16 acres apart from this one, where we're building resource center. So post-trainings, we want the farmers to be able to access videos and manuals and maybe whatever information and support right in the community. So this is a separate 15 acres of land we're building a resource center. And we bought another 100 acres where we grow food for relief, because sometimes we also do implement relief and recovery projects to people in need, especially, Malawi as a country has been heavily affected by the cyclones. So we've done some fundraising, of course, but also, of course, our own land where we grow food. That's something that we never expected. And then the links that now we're able to work with the government, we're able to work with local organizations and local schools and colleges, something that we never expected. Of course, our long goal is to train 100,000 farmers before we die, before we join our system. So it's something that we haven't achieved yet, but we are working towards that one. And something that we never expected is that, in the very first years when we started training, we had a lot of people interested in the training. And so we trained a lot of farmers. The 12,000 farmers I'm talking about are the farmers that we trained directly, minus those who were paid by the government, those who were paid by other organizations, those who came from other countries. So literally we've trained like thousands and thousands of people across the globe. And then the first year we had a lot of people interested in the trainings. In the second year, we had a lot of people interested in like a 1-day educational visit where they come for 1 day and learn. And then now in the third year, fourth year, we realized that there was so much demand for our services. People wanted us to go and help them establish their farms. So like every year has got its own opportunities and challenges, of course, but every year has got its own milestones that we can point out. Okay, this year, these are some of the notable and tangible achievements thus far. Yeah, and the last thing is that, we developed a model, a very unique model, which we never expected. So our model starts with awareness, where we do sensitization meetings in communities, and those farmers who are interested in our services, they come for orientation. So they come for a one-day visit of our farm, where we take them on a tour of the farm and show them how we grow food using local resources. And those farmers who are interested, they recruited for a proper training of 5 days. And after 5 days, these farmers are allowed to go and implement what they learned. But before they go, we donate a starter pack. We create a starter pack of tools and seeds. So in terms of the seeds, we give them a variety of seeds, and we also donate tools, farm tools, which include toolbars, shovels, rakes, and we also donate animals for manure production, compost making. So among the animals we've been donating rabbits, chickens, ducks, goats, and cattle, so that the farmers are able to produce their own manure for compost making. Aside from that, we've also been building composting toilets because some of the families are larger than we expected. So we've been building composting toilets, and we believe the larger the family, the more manure they harvest and the less problems they have in terms of hunger, because they'll be using the same manure for co-production. So so far we've built over 300 composting toilets for smallholder farmers, and we've also been donating pushback smartphones and motorbikes to farmers so that they're able to support each other within the community. So when these farmers are trained for 5 days and they are allowed to go and implement, after a few months, they are brought back for a nutrition cooking class. The idea is that when the farmers are able to produce enough and surplus, they should be able to learn on how to prepare their meals in a way that protect the nutrients. So after 6 months, the same farmers are promoted to become lead farmers, and each farmer is obliged to recruit 9 members, and she becomes a leader of a club, a farmer club. And then later on, the same farmer is promoted to become a community facilitator, and they are provided with push bikes. And then later on, after a year, the same farmer is promoted to become a field agent, and they are provided with motorbikes. So the field agent oversees 200 farmers, the community facilitator oversees 50 farmers, the lead farmer oversees 9 farmers in farmer clubs of 10 members. So that's the model that we developed. And then when these farmers are advanced in understanding and implementation and are able to harvest enough and surplus, that's where we initiated the idea of farmers market. So we built the farmers market to be able to sell their produce to a well-institutionalized farmers market. And those farmers were able to produce enough and surplus and they're able to sell at the farmers market. We've got a seed bank. We've been building seed banks, communal seed banks, to protect heritage heirloom seeds and avoid genetically modified seeds. So these seed banks have been built right in the community for the farmers to be able to keep their seeds. So that's our unique model and how we've been working with farmers. And that's something that has changed, something that we never expected.
I mean, that's a huge, ambitious project. I mean, it must be kind of overwhelming at the scale. How do you make sure it gets supported? Like, what kind of work do you have to do in your community or with partners and funders to make it happen?
Oh, great. So, as in order to attract people's attention and secure funding, be able to secure funding, we focus on our institute, especially the demonstration. So, we try to do everything the right way, however we can, and make sure that we've got a very unique way of implementing permaculture. You know, the good thing with permaculture and agroecology is that permaculture and agroecology is always area specific, culture specific, region specific. So you're able to contextualize and do it your own way. So for us, we focus on contextualizing permaculture and agroecology and do it our own way, our unique way of doing things, which attracts a lot of people's attention. And in the way, we find some well-wishers who would want to support, let's say, training. Some people want to donate tubers, others would want to do the structure, something like that. So that's how we've been able to, like, space funding. And we also post everything that we do on our social media handles. So people are able to see, they're able to track progress. People can go on our social media handles and they'll be able to see how we started, and they'll also be able to see the progress where we're at. And, through the post, they can also hear about our vision, So that builds trust in people because they've seen us all along, They've seen how we started and they've seen how we established the institute, and they've seen all these things, all the wheelbarrows I'm talking about, all the motorbikes I'm talking about, all the things I'm talking about. If you go on our social media handles, you go on our website, you will find all those updates. You'll find not just distinctly, you'll find, qualitative data. You find pictures, you find videos, When I'm facilitating a 5-day training, I take photos of every day so that somebody trusts that I facilitated for 5 days. I cannot facilitate a 5-day training and post once and say, I facilitated a 5-day training and these are the photos. Nobody will trust me. But if I post every day, people are able to follow, and that way we are able to keep trusting people. And that's how we've been able to secure resources for specific projects.
Yeah, and I can imagine it's, you need your like trusted partners both in Malawi, but also you've done a lot of work to build awareness internationally too, right? You've built quite a network.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
One of the things that really stood out to me about your story and on your website and in the first interview is this, like, giving the farmers tools and seeds to get started. In the first interview, you described it kind of like a tool belt. And now, as I'm looking through your website, it's like a wheelbarrow full of gifts, right, for the farmers. Why is it so important to do that very practical, like, material tool thing in the context of Malawi? Why is it important that the farmers actually walk away with the tools, not just the knowledge?
Well, everything that we've been doing, we've been building from one mistake to another. So the mistakes that we've made have been the lessons that have helped us to correct those mistakes to become milestones. So, for example, when we started implementing permaculture, we realized there was a need. There were so many people suffering, so many people in need of the knowledge, but they could not afford to pay for the training. So it was our responsibility to secure funding in order to be able to train the farmers, because there are a lot of other things that we need in order to conduct the training. Farmers are not just within the cross-country distance. Other farmers are, miles away from us. So that was the first thing. We can't just keep doing this on our own. But we need to build a network. We need to build a revolution. So this movement started with us as a family and the need in farmers. And when the farmers were brought to training, like the 12 days training, we realized the PDC, the permaculture design course, was focusing on the design, and the farmers could not understand it fully. So we had to cut it into 5 days and focus on practicals, so that when we're training the farmers, we are focusing on specific things that the farmers would want you to know. And then when they go back, those are the very specific things that we want them to do. And then we realized that after the training, the farmers needed to start something, start a garden. And then how do they make compost? How do they transport compost? So after done consistent monitoring of the farmers, we were able to realize some gaps, and uncover some gaps. So like all these idea never came at once. Like the model which you find on the website, which I just explained, you find that there's one piece missing. That model ends with the farmers market. It ends with the seed bank. But now we want to add the piece of the communal resource data. So all these lessons learned are being implemented in order to address the challenges that we realized so far. So it's not something that was done overnight. The very first trainings were not donating nothing. After doing the monitoring of the farmers, how the challenges they're facing, the thing that I never even mentioned in here to do with water and sanitation. You may not find loads on the website, but we've done so much also on water and sanitation, where we've done some fundraising, we've donated boreholes, we've donated solar water systems to like 6 villages, accessing water from one water point, distributing water taps, We've done all that in some communities. But like I said, all this came, we did some analysis of what's happening, what are some of the challenges that the farmers face, and how can we make.
Well, and I'm like a theme in this series, right? And, moving here to Uruguay from the United States, I'm originally from the US. I realized really quickly that like a lot of the farmers, they don't buy equipment, they like rent or borrow from a neighbor, right? Like there's a different culture, there's a different material culture because of the economic conditions, how hard it is to get things in supply chains. I'm wondering, like, what about Malawi meant that like you needed to make sure they had a wheelbarrow and a shovel and one of these other pieces of equipment that you're donating? Like, why is it so important that like the farmer's success starts with something that you're actually providing them?
Yeah. So, well, if you visited Malawi, here's the situation. The infrastructure, the roads are very, very bad. They're very poor. So depending on the culture in Malawi, there are cultures where other people build their houses together and they farm a mile, 2 miles away from their main settlement. So if you look at that farmer who has to walk a mile or 2 miles away from where he stays or they stay to the farm, how do they transport manure in the farm? How do they transport compost? How do they transport produce after harvest? So those were some of the questions that we asked ourselves after looking at the farmers. They have all the knowledge. They have the tool belt that I mentioned in the previous podcast. So the tool belt, to me, was the knowledge, But now we're like, okay, apart from this tool belt, we just realized that the farmer has to walk some miles to access the field. Of course, our model starts with the home state, but even within the home state, the farmer does not, most of the farmers, not all, does not have access to materials like tractor or earth movers and the like. But if we could provide them with very small tools like tubers, the farmers should be able to transport compost and produce from the farm and likewise from the homestead to the farm. So it is very, very, very important because if they don't have these tools, then the farmers may not be able to transport the compost. They may have the compost, but they may not be able to transport the compost. Even if they're working in the garden, they still need a tool, a smaller tool that does not require petrol or fuel to run, something very basic like a wheelbarrow, shovel, and a rail. So it's very, very important. And in terms of the seeds and seedlings, because of the coming in of the genetically modified, promotion of genetically modified seeds by national companies, seed companies, we realized that there is a need for us to reintroduce these local seeds to the farmers. So that's why we thought it was very, very important that we don't just train the farmers and allow them to go and implement. Because if they learn, they have the right knowledge, but they don't have the right seed, they'll still use the right knowledge and the wrong seed, Permaculture knowledge, planting genetically modified seed, because that's what they have. So to us, we realized that this is a need, very important for them to go back to our ways of farming, That's why we realized that okay, it would be important to donate seed. In terms of the animals, if you heard me, we start with very small animals which are prolific and animals which produces high quality and strong manure, so that the farmers don't need a larger head of animals in order to access manure for composting. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's why we thought it is important. Apart from the tool belts, we give them other tools.
Yeah, I mean, I think something that's kind of underestimated in permaculture, but also in other kinds of, regenerative projects, right, is you do need those inputs, but you need those inputs to be ones that like can be maintained in a network or in a community or in kind of a certain area. It can't just, it needs to start somewhere, right? And I think the challenge often global south is you have these kind of locked in kind of economic systems that maybe only give you access to the GMO seed and you don't necessarily have access to something else. Like a good example of this is I recently had one of our neighbors plow a hectare that we have, and I'm trying to buy seed to do a cover crop. And every time I contact the seed sellers, when I say I only want 1 or 2 bags, they ignore me, right? Because I'm not big enough of a client, right? My Spanish isn't good enough to like be a priority. And so I think there's like, we're often operating in these systems, whereas, I have enough sunflower seed or corn to do my own crop, but I haven't acquired some of the other seeds I need. And if I don't, find a seller and I have money and time, it's hard. Whereas, if you're in another context like Malawi and the supply chain is only the GMO corn, what do you do unless you get that access?
Yeah. So like I said, the coming in of the perpetual companies, they're pushing for their seeds being the GMO. They're pushing for those seeds because they get them to sell and get money. To the point that even the government, the government, they take the very same hybrid maize which is being distributed to these smallholder farmers. So in the process, we are losing our own being legacy traditional faith. That's why to us, we thought it was that it's very, very important to bring back this faith. It's also important to build seed banks, communal seed banks, where the farmers are able to multiply a lot of seeds on their own after getting the starter pack from us. So what we provide is a starter pack. And we also realized that if we compare our projects with other projects, our projects are more sustainable and resilient than other projects, because if we give a pair of rabbits to a farmer, that farmer is supposed to multiply the rabbits and give back a pair of rabbits, so they can take the pair of rabbits and donate it to other farmers. Then with the seed, if we donate seeds to the farmer, because they're able to multiply and have surplus, they're obliged to bring back the same percentage that we give them, so that we can use that to donate to other farmers. So we are using support other farmers using the very same approach. So that's why it's very, very important in the long run, because once these things are initiated, the farmer is just supposed to manage. They don't need to buy again because they are locally adapted to our environment.
Well, and you're creating those networks of resilience, right? Especially that are really important. And as you were saying earlier, like if a typhoon comes through and, someone's seed is destroyed or the rabbits get out, there's someone else in the community who could, they were donated a rabbit. So, they understand that they can do the same to others. There's like you're building that network of resilience, right?
Yeah. So that's why our model is very practical and manageable. I cannot manage to oversee 12,000 farmers. That's why if I train one person, that person is supposed to train 9 others, and that formulate a farmer club of 10 members. So if, for example, I train 100 farmers. Those farmers have to multiply by 10, you know. So that would be 1,000 farmers already. And then that's those 10 farmers being managed by one person. And then 50 of those farmers are managed by one person by farmer card. That becomes a community facilitator. And 200 of those farmers are managed by one person who is a field agent. So in that way, we're building a huge network. We've become a hub. And then we have all these satellites where farmers who came to us and they went through a formal training, they established small demonstration farms where these other farmers use as a farmer food school for them. So they don't need to come back to us because most of those farmers are coming from far distance, but they cannot manage to come to us to learn. So that's how we are building these networks, starting with us as a family, having the institute as a hub, and then these the small farmers, like lead farmers, as satellites, establishing small demonstration farms for follower farmers to follow suit. So that's how we were building the network. Now, when we're working with the government and other organizations, you ask that question, of course, I never started that one. This is how we work. When we're working with other organizations, we come in as technocrats to provide technical support on the implementation of permaculture and agriculture. So we start with formal trainings, farmers. After the farmers are trained, we provide oversight of implementation of what the farmers were taught. And then we also deploy our field agent who works hand in hand with government extension officer and the partner organization and field agent. So we become partners in implementing, let's say, 2, 3, 5-year projects, providing technical support on the implementation of permaculture and agriculture. So that's how we've been doing. And on the other hand, after building these farmers markets where we sell value-added products to demonstrate faith and solidarity economy, we've also been able to connect these farmers with other organizations who are interested in the seeds, so they come and buy seed from the farm or from the seed bank, or they come and buy product from the farmers market, or they come to the restaurant where they get the milk. So now you can see the network there, starting with a single family to, let's say, a village, a community, and then going to a district level.
Well, and something that like is a property of networks, and especially networks in like resource constrained environments, is often creativity, right? Like you see solutions you would have never imagined. What surprised you coming from the network? What when you've looked at it at the network, what are you like, I didn't even expect that to happen, but that's a great outcome that follows from this. Yeah, what kind of surprises have you seen?
Well, the main surprise, like I said, is every year we're getting so many people going through our programs, but every year is different. And every year we're having new activities. Like I said, the very first year focusing on training, in the second year focusing on educational building, and then now we're focusing on establishing people's farms. Like something that we never imagined. Like I said, that we've got a huge number of Africans in diaspora who are interested to come back home after seeing what we've done. And they're like, oh yeah, now we can go back home and see something that will sustain our needs. So we never thought that we would be able to reach out to that huge number of farmers, like 12,000 farmers in 3 years. Because we did that in 3 years. Now it's just 8 years, but we did that in 2 years. That's something that surprised us because we never thought that. And, the support we got from other people so that we are able to do the corporate knowledge I talked about, and the tools and or the farmers market or the seed banks or all that. So something that we never expected that. And it's something that even part of our network never expected, because in Malawi, people always permaculture just having a training institute where we conduct permaculture design courses where people come, get certified and they go. But that you can run it this way, nobody expected it, including us. So that's something that applies us. And the other thing is how you were able to expand from the first 16 acres of the institute to the 16 acres of the resource center, to the 7 acres of the farmers market, to the 100 acres of the relief. That's something that we never expected. For us, we thought that maybe the 16 acres of the institute would be the only place on the farm that would be focusing our attention on. But then later on, we realized that there's so many moving parts coming that we need to manage. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can imagine, like, something I'm learning even on my 3-hectare property is like these are logistics and like people operations, right? It gets bigger and bigger over time, and it becomes more kind of complex, but you learn so much. I'm wondering, you were saying about the expats coming back and wanting to do something. Where are not expats, migrants, people have left Malawi. Where are they coming back from, and what do they want to do? You were saying you were working on a project last week that was for one of these returning Malawians.
Can you come again on that one? I know it was,
like what's attracting people to come back when you develop these projects, like these lands for people to return to Malawi?
Possibilities of Malawi. When we established the Permaculture Paradise Institute, we started demonstrating possibilities of Malawi, what's possible in Malawi. The same land that people thought that it's unproductive, landlocked country, with half of the population being poor people. People thought that nothing good can come out of Malawi. So when they saw the possibilities of Malawi, like, okay, we can go back home and we'll be able to grow food because there's somebody who is there who is able to grow food. We can go back home and live our own life because there's somebody who is living the dream, like his dream or her dream. Those are the things that most of the Malawians, not just Malawians, but I've done now so much online coaching to lots of Africans in diaspora who want to come back to Africa, not just Malawians. So they've realized that, okay, the country we come from has so much potential that even if we go back home now, we will be able to grow enough food to feed our family. We'll be able to generate income to support our needs. We'll be able to, build our structures and, live a happy life. Those are some of very basic things. When they see our videos showing like all the food that we post in our land, like we can go back home and be able to grow our own food. Because most of them never imagined coming back home and have a piece of land that could be producing and providing for their needs. So after seeing that there's somebody who's able to do that, that's something that's a greatest interest to them. And that's why they're wanting to come back to Africa.
Yeah, and where are they coming back from usually?
Well, now I've done courses in coaching, and I've done work for people from all over, especially the United States, United Kingdom, Canada. Yeah, so many people from all over. Yeah.
That's really cool. I mean, it's exciting it's exciting that it's like appealing to people who, had to leave or even, are arriving in Malawi thinking, oh, this is an opportunity. That's really neat. We're beginning to approach, I think we've been talking for about 45, 50 minutes. I'm wondering, is there something you want to highlight that we haven't talked about yet that's important for you to kind of share with the listeners of the podcast?
Yeah, so Permaculture Paradise Institute is one of my main organizations in Malawi, which is helping the marginalized community, especially the small-scale farmers, to establish not just productive, but sustainable and resilient permaculture and agro eco farms, starting with homestead food forests, where farmers are able to minimize their ground and establish a food forest to provide for their needs in terms of fruits and vegetables. And we're also focusing on seasonal farmland, where in a typical Malawian field, farmers opt to cut down all the trees and create room for short-term crops, which is, in this case, maize. or corn. We are bringing agroforestry to these farms to impact nitrogen and biomass and protection to the soil. And then those with access to water, we are also able to help redesign the wetlands in a way that is more productive, sustainable, and resilient. And our project seems to be more sustainable and resilient as compared to other projects because most of the projects that we've seen, they are very short term. For us, even if our project is out, we are still able to provide and cover some of the things that we initiated in the community longer term. So I wanted to highlight that I wish if we could have a lot of people supporting that kind of initiative, not just us, but maybe a lot of other people promoting permaculture agriculture in the country. Because that's something that I've seen that it's more sustainable and resilient as compared to other short-term projects. So that's something that I wanted to highlight. And also that we are still building the institute and we are not yet where we wanted to be. And our goal is to train 100,000 farmers. Until then, we haven't completed our mission. Our mission is to train 100,000 farmers, and be able to establish 100,000 food forests and be able to address the challenges that most of Malawians, not just Malawi. Now we've seen a lot of interest from all over the world. We have programs where students from different parts of the world subscribe and they come for a learning visit or they come for the volunteer and do some work ours. We've seen the institute impacting people's lives from all over the world, not just in Malawi. So that's why it's my wish to keep this dream growing and helping address challenges that a lot of people are facing right now. Apart from demonstrating, training, consulting, and helping people start big farms, we have the farmers market where we focus so much on organic and traditional food, where people are able to access the organic honey, mushrooms, teas, and tinctures. All those are sold in the shop that we call. So apart from the farmers, we have that shop, and we also open to the farmers where the farmers can come and be able to sell their produce. And then apart from that, we are also helping organizations initiate their project and implement the project in relation to permaculture. And so far, those are some of the things that I wanted to highlight. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have such a ambitious and kind of multi-enterprise approach to making the institute work, and it's really exciting to kind of run themselves once you invest in them, which is, it's not common. Like nonprofits sometimes have a hard time, or kind of community-focused development projects sometimes have a hard time like figuring out how to make it sustainable.
Yeah.
So one of the things I'm asking all of the guests that I interview is there anyone you want to highlight or you think would be a good guest on the show other than yourself?
From Malawi or elsewhere?
Malawi or somewhere else in the region, or someone you really admire?
I have a whole network. I have a whole database of people that I can share. So I can share that through email because I have a whole list of people. Because we also have a Malawian YouTuber who's been going across Malawi, interviewing Malawians who are doing amazing work in Malawi. So I share the whole list of all these people who are doing amazing work. I can also share that. Because there are a lot of projects in Malawi who are also doing permaculture and agriculture, both in central, northern, and southern Malawi, even in eastern Malawi. So I should be able to share that via email, and you can contact them directly.
Cool. I'll share we'll make sure the YouTube series is in the show notes as well. Well, I think we're right about at time. I want to say thank you so much. It was a wonderful conversation. Any other last words for the listeners before we close out?
Oh, I would want to thank you for this opportunity because the podcast, while it's being broadcast, it's going to reach a lot of people. So I just wanted to say thanks to you, so much, Oliver, for the opportunity for me to be able to be featured on this podcast and the previous one on the Abana Bridge. It's my wish that a lot of people are going to listen to the podcast and be able to share the work that we do in Malawi, even supporting the projects that we've been stated in Malawi and amplify those projects far and wide so that together we can help to address the challenges that the world is facing, not just Malawi. We think global, we act local. And we know that the challenges, that the global challenges affect us. So the global opportunities also help us. So one or the other. So that's why we believe in thinking global, but acting local. We thank you for that and Oliver as well. Thank you so much.
Now, before we wrap this up, just remember that these episodes are only the beginning of the learning resources, design and coaching services, in-person courses, and interactive community that are available through Regenerative Skills. The Discord server is our free community where you can connect with other like-minded listeners, exchange ideas, stories, tips, and resources, as well as interact with me directly and quite a few former guests from this show. Our Instagram account @regen_skills is the best place to see the projects that me and the team are working on, both for clients and collaborators, as well as on our own properties. I'll also be announcing the certification courses, workshops, and gatherings that we've got coming up later this year. If you're interested in getting dedicated support for your own project, you can now schedule a free planning session with one of our team members through the request form on our website. You can also find all the links, show notes, and past resources there at regenerativeskills.com. We truly believe that no matter your experience, your knowledge, abilities, resources, or background, you can be a powerful force for regeneration on this planet, and we're here to help you find your path. So as always, remember to keep taking those little steps every day towards a regenerative future, and I'll be right by your side along the way.